ding, ding. Hey.
Hola todos.
Move this mic closer, maybe. Hello, hello. How's that?
That's good. How do I sound?
Great. Sing a little. Well, I can't tell until you sing a little.
Strangers in the night.
Oh, it's sounding good.
Thank you. I've been working on that.
Yeah, nice.
So, here we are. After a week off, we're back. And it's good to be here.
Yep.
You?
So you can see me. I'll show my background a little. I'll show both of our little people. I'm in this.
This is my kitchen.
Yeah, you've just got the kitchen.
Appliances.
I've got a war zone going on here. This is actually the office area for the UFO Congress. And, so you can see the t-shirts and stuff back there. Not that I haven't sat here before, but it's a little more crazy right now because we just got done with the Congress just a few days ago, but we're still like sending out all the products that people bought and everything.
I can have.
You can see the little.
No, it looks like a crazy fulfillment center.
Work hard pants lady upside down, which because you've got your own fulfillment center, your own lab, even.
It's true. All these things are true.
Which is pretty cool. One day you're going to have to give us a tour of that.
Yeah. I might do that. That would be cool.
Yeah, maybe.
I can't give away too many secrets, though. It's our secret underground layer. So I mean.
That's right. Yeah, there's lots of secrets. I forgot about that part. So This is welcome everybody. This is what is Doug reading? Is that what this is called? Yeah.
Yes. I didn't remember what show we were on for a second.
Smythe. And he was a vendor at the recent International UFO Congress, which was just last week. That's why we missed last week. But looks like we've got lots of our friends, many of whom were some of our friends who joined us at the Congress, including Rodrigo, Sonia, Stacy Wright from Phoenix Move On. She was even one of the speakers. Ruby Firefly, welcome. I don't know that you were there at the conference. That's okay if you weren't. Renee and Dolene are also here, some of our other regulars. So welcome, everybody. And of course, we've got Doug here because he reads weird stuff, and that's what we're going to talk about. This is not specifically a UFO show, even though I have a UFO hat.
I know I have aliens on my shirt.
And you have aliens on your shirt.
We're just mocking you now, people.
Yeah, we're just mocking people.
You show up for the aliens and we give you something completely different.
Just kidding. We actually, because I do UFOs and Doug has a strong interest in them, they come up often when we're talking about these things. And we do have some topics to talk about. Better be interesting girlfriend coming soon. I wonder what that means. Does he mean?
That's kind of cryptic. Yeah. So if she shows up and we're interesting, you might ignore her, or I don't know. Or is that?
I'm not sure what it means. Of course, we both, I think, have interesting girlfriends, and we're both of similar age and similar weirdness in that they're pretty much our forever partners in that we've been with our girlfriends for years.
I know. I feel like a teenager and got people like, so how's your wife? No, it's my girlfriend.
And that's such a weird thing when you're this age. But many people that are this age have got other friends where it's like, I don't know. It's like no big deal. Nobody wants to take that. They don't feel the need to take any other steps. Or together, we're committed. We're going to be together.
People act like the 60s never happened. I mean, come on, people. We're progressive.
So it's kind of funny that way because that's how and I've got other friends like this. So but it's weird to call people. It's weird to say girlfriend when you're this age.
Yeah. Like when my mom says it. My mom even
something else.
My mom says it in a weird way that's like trying to say more than what she's actually saying. She's saying girlfriend, but it's the tone that she says in like still your girlfriend, and it's like people just don't get it, Marriage is outdated.
Okay, other comments we've got from we'll get to the book here. We do have an esoteric book to look at. But cool. Let's see. Hypocrisy have an album called Arrival, and the cover is just like Doug's shirt.
Oh, really? This is from Roswell.
Roswell. And did you get it at Walmart? I feel like the Walmart has the
No,
best.
I got it at Roswell.
I know, but the Roswell Walmart
Oh,
has
no,
some of
no.
the best.
Honestly,
Roswell
though, I
shirts.
was there. Now that you mention it, I bought a Star Trek costume from that Walmart because it was Halloween. I showed up there
Yeah.
Halloween morning, and even though I had brought some costumes, long story, but I ended up buying a Star Trek one. They had a red shirt, so I bought the Star Trek shirt at that Walmart. Strangely enough, so it's weird that you bring that. Oh, well, you live there, so you know of these things.
Oh, I see what Dirk is saying. Yeah. Well, no, I didn't live in Roswell, but of course I've
Oh, you
been
did?
there a lot. No, my
Oh,
mom lived in Albuquerque for a while. That could be what you're thinking.
yeah, that's what it is.
Spent a lot of time out there. In fact, my sister's driving from Denver to Albuquerque right now just to hang out. Usually
which
the
sister?
first
Care Bear?
weekend of October is also the balloon fiesta, which is absolutely amazing, but not this
Epic.
year. Same reason the Congress wasn't in person. But
Oh.
Dirk is trying to say his girlfriend is coming over, so we have to be more interesting than her to keep his attention.
Okay, that's what I originally thought. I don't believe we've talked about this for the last 5 minutes already, but yes. Okay. Well, I hope this has done it for you, Dirk. Anyways, did anyone catch the reunion of Princess Bride?
No, somebody commented on it. Oh, Brian, who was at the conference too. And he had a very, I know. It was kind of a funny exchange. So Brian Bender, who is one of the speakers, works for Politico. He does hobnob with a lot of politicians and stuff. But Ted Cruz wrote something about the reunion, and he wrote about how great it was, and how great this was before movies were politicized, and which is kind of a weird comment to make about Princess Bride, because if you're bright enough, you can catch. There's a lot of commentary on all kinds of things in it. And Brian responded, he's like, what are you talking about? The people who made the movie, Rob Reiner was a director, very political. Go look at his Twitter right now and you'll see that. Yeah. And then the other guy who made the movie also made All the President's Men, who is also has very strong political interests.
Well, not only that, in the time it was made in, Ronald Reagan, an ex-Hollywood actor, was president. So, I mean, when people talking about Hollywood being political, it's always been political. I mean, it's nothing new. And the fact of the matter is, no matter what your job is, you should have a political opinion. We all live in the same country. I can't, I don't know. I don't get it. But, he did politicize it. And by doing so, Ted Cruz, that is, he actually made more people aware of that this was going on and partook of it. But it was amazing. I enjoyed every second of it. It was awesome.
I would have loved it. Princess Bride.
You would have absolutely. Cool. I thought you were watching it, but then I was like, no, he's probably still doing something to do with the convention. So, but it was awesome. It really felt like you were part of something, and you're watching it happen live, and and their sound is going in and out. It's a classic Zoom fail in so many parts, but it was just really super cool at the end of the day. Everyone watching at the same time.
And I'm curious, anybody watching, those of you in the chat, let us know if you have not seen Princess Bride and or if you didn't like it, because I'm guessing both of those category of people will be in the minority. Don't give that look. Don't shame anybody yet.
Yeah.
We'll see what their responses are.
Right. I'm sorry. I don't know how you could miss that one though, or dislike that.
Jolene hasn't seen it yet. Whoa.
Dolene, why do you hate America?
No,
again, it's not a political film, but you will absolutely love it. And for the historical reference alone, for all the references, you should probably see it.
To get by without understanding those cultural references, kind of like Caddyshack.
Yes. And yes.
Dirk saw it as an adult. He said he really liked it. I would say Dolene, definitely take a look, because I think
I own it
it's pretty
5 different ways. I own it on VHS from 20 years ago, DVD from 10 years ago, and I'm sure I bought it on Amazon at some point. So yeah, it's a classic. And what's beautiful about it is they never felt the need to make a part 2 or a part 3 or a part, they really just, I love it when they stay true to the film and don't try anything. Don't try to make any more money off it. Don't exploit it, I guess is what it all comes down to. And so mad props to Rob Reiner on that.
So far, it'll be exploited at some point. And if
I
Rob
hope
Reiner's
not.
keeping it from being exploited, he's not going to live forever. So it is Hollywood.
So we have to work at this then. We have to somehow get the rights to it, you and I, and protect it.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That would be great if we could, though. Because you know what I think you could do? You don't have to come up with a part 2, but you can come up with like bonus material and stuff, like this whole little kind of fun, which reminds me along these lines. It's so funny. We're not even getting close into our topic, but Cobra Kai, have you watched that?
I tried watching the preview, and that even turned me off.
You got to get into it. You got to get a few episodes into it, but it's genius because, they reference the movie so much, and this is what these people are doing now, and it's as if that all really happened, and it's so funny. It just it does start slow, but it picks up steam. And I'm really liking it, actually. I'm enjoying it.
It might be just that I was never really a Karate Kid fan. I saw all of them in the theater, don't get me wrong. In fact, I remember seeing Karate Kid 3. It was so packed, we had to sit on the aisle to watch the film. I remember doing that. Yeah, I know. So I was dedicated to seeing movies, but I still am. I very seldomly walk out of a film, or a movie.
So even though you were a kid, you were like, eh.
Yeah, it really wasn't it didn't really do it all that for me, but I still go with my friends to see movies, like that. But it wasn't one that really I hear people quoting it now, and it's like, I'll recognize the quotes, but it's like, I never really get that into it.
That's interesting.
Sorry.
And now I would say, thinking about it as an adult, it's pretty cheesy and stuff, but it was kind of like a unique. It was cute, wholesome, and also kind of, it has a lot about the society at that time. The culture of the age is well documented, I think, in the film, which is a lot of fun too. So, that's
interestingly enough, fun fact for you: where I live in Casa Grande, Arizona, this is where Mr. Miyagi, or Pat Morita, during the Second World War, this is where his family, in the what were they called? Internment camps. This is where they were. Well, some of them were in Casa Grande. So right down the road is where Mr. Miyagi was parked as a child.
Which sucks because it's a desert. It's probably over 100 degrees there right now.
Easily.
And they were in these camps in this desert out there.
Yeah.
Pretty sad. So a couple other comments were Karate Kid did not like. Dolene didn't like it. Rodrigo's talking about how the Dune trailer is out. Marianne Robb is watching. Hello. So Marianne and Stacy were both speakers at the conference.
That's right.
I think the Dune movie is looking pretty good. And then Argo, somebody named Argo says, I want to debate you about ufology, blah, blah, blah. Bud Hopkins and Dave Jacobs have fleshed out World War scenario, and it's being ignored. So, he's talking about how Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs, who are two interesting researchers, but who were some of the worst when it comes to grabbing actual information from people. They're not psychologists, and I think they completely misused the way that you use hypnotic regression. And so they got very tainted results, in my humble opinion. So that's the whole problem. I'm not ignoring it. Covered it. Been there, done that. There's so many people doing different regressions that's the whole problem with doing regression, is that if you're trying to retrieve information, there's so many ways to taint that information. And I do have a certificate in hypnotherapy. Actually, I've done it. And mostly what its purpose is to induce fantastical situations to help with therapy. And so I would say that, it's just too difficult because all of these data that's being received at that level is also different, and there's a ton of it. And if you were just to look at the data alone, I think you would have to look at people who are much more prolific, who have a lot more regressions done, and their information is completely different than Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs. And in fact, everybody's information is different because everybody's going to get different information, which gets back to how that information's tainted. And people are just going to, otherwise, why is everybody getting something completely different?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to plant false memories too, and so on and so forth. I mean, like we've seen this, and that's been proven.
Yeah,
but
plenty of studies show that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why even conscious or subconscious. I mean, like our minds are so malleable, and and sensitive to suggestion that it's really tough to you got to catch everything on film. And even then it's altered. I don't know. It's a bloody mess. But this isn't a UFO show, folks. This is a paranormal reading rainbow for y'all.
Oh, that's right.
Today's book. That's right. Today's book that we are looking at, and you may remember this one, some of you. I mean, or some of you might not know it to a hole in the wall. But Henry Lincoln is one of the authors that that wrote the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail back in the early 80s. I think it came out in 83. And this is his other book. I believe it came out in 1989 or the 90, or maybe it was 91. But I picked this up in probably about 1995. And this is one of those other books that I remember buying. I was at like a bucket book sale, and I scooped this up with another book that happened to be on the Camino de Santiago before I knew what that was. So both these books kind of stuck with me for my entire life. In fact, when I was planning on doing the Camino this last spring, I was going to go visit Rennes-le-Château, which is what this book is about. And if you're involved in the paranormal world, if ever dug into it with any depth at all, you've definitely scraped the surface of Rennes-le-Château. Maybe. I know people in Europe are more hip to this because the BBC used to cover this in the 70s. To me, it didn't show up on my radar until the 90s. It was this in the Money Pit, Oak Island rather, that I remember being on my radar in the mid 90s. And so an excellent book on Rennes-le-Château. If you don't know what Rennes-le-Château is, it's this magical place in southern France. I mean, this is such a great mystery story. A French priest is sent to this tiny village in southern France, broke. He makes about £6 a year. I mean, he's not making money at all. He almost seemed to be sent there as some form of punishment. So when he gets there, he starts trying to fix up the church with his limited budget and hiring people from the village to help out. And somewhere along the way, something, we assume, is discovered, some type of treasure, because shortly after this, he suddenly has money to throw around here, throw money around there. He starts building stuff, starts building roadworks, water towers for the town, and then pouring the rest of it into his church, or his tiny church dedicated to Mary Magdalene, his own little tower, like tiny castle, and an orangery or a greenhouse. I mean, he totally pours all this money into developing Rennes-le-Château, and no one knows where this money came from. So the mystery is there. And what this book does is pretty much take over where Holy Blood, Holy Grail leaves off with this story. And it's Henry Lincoln on his own delving into it. And it's fascinating. I mean, it involves manuscripts. It involves parchments. I mean, and it's so hard to believe it's real. And the more you dig into this, it may not be real. Turns out Henry Lincoln, not only was he a writer back in the day, he also worked on early Doctor Who episodes. So he's a BBC writer. So if there's someone to add a little, to sex it up and sell it, he's your guy. But that's not what this book's about. This book is about the mystery. And again, it's absolutely amazing how in depth it goes. In fact, right there, that painting by Poussin is a huge part of the story. So do you know what I'm talking about? Are you familiar with Rennes-le-Château?
No, give us some more info. I've read about it back in the day, but I haven't really looked into any of that stuff for a very long time.
Okay, so what goes on is, well, let's see what these commenters say. No.
Oh, no. Tell us about Rennes-le-Château.
Yeah, no, I was looking see if there's any questions. I got We got your
Oh, no,
debater.
don't worry about the questions.
Yeah, I'm turning that off. Anyways,
There
okay.
are
So
people saying that they loved that Rennes-le-Chateau is interesting, and they're talking about, and so so people want to hear more, like me.
anyways, so Rennes-le-Chateau, it begins around 1890, 1891, when Francois Berenger Saunier, the priest, is sent there, and you may recognize the name Saunier because it's borrowed by Dan Brown. In fact, all of this is borrowed by Dan Brown in the Da Vinci Code. So whenever that Da Vinci Code came out in the early 2000s, as soon as I remember hearing an interview on NPR, and I was like, this sounds a lot like the Holy Blood, the Holy Grail, or it sounds like the Holy Place. Like this guy, and I was like, I'm waiting for him to give credit to any of these other books. And I never heard any. So I was like, that's interesting. But yeah, it was all he actually got sued, not by this author, but by the other two authors at one point for the Da Vinci Code, because he borrowed a lot of their ideas.
Oh,
this
really?
author refrained. Yeah, this author refrained from suing because he's like, well, he behaved naughty, but I can't get mad at him because even us got these ideas from somewhere else and we put them up together. You know, we just strung it together. We drank from the same well as a lot of other people, I guess is what Henry Lincoln was trying to say. But Henry Lincoln, it begins with his story, his personal story around Rennes-le-Chateau. And what happened is, or how he discovered it is, he was on vacation, late 60s, and he was just, looking for summer reading, while he was in between, whatever he was doing and sitting at the coffee shop. He wanted something to read. So he picked a book off the rack at the local bookstore near the cafe, and it was on Rennes-le-Chateau, and I think it was called The Treasure of Rennes-le-Chateau, an obscure book. Picked that up, and he, it was a mystery. It was about a priest finding money or something, Templar treasure. He enjoyed it, but what he immediately noticed while he was zoning out, actually, he was sitting on a bench zoning out, and he saw this. Actually, I sent you some pictures of these.
Yeah, I've got them. If you want me to show them, let me know.
Yeah, if you show those, I can
show
describe what you're looking at.
Here it is.
Okay, so these are parchments that were supposedly found in a dossier. We'll get to that in a minute. But what we're looking at here is what Henry Lincoln was looking at in the book that he paid $1 for. And it was an interesting read. And as he was zoning out on this, stuff started popping out of the Latin. What he noticed immediately was, the weird shape in the upper left-hand corner. What's going on with that? But then certain letters rise above the lines, as you would do with a code. So he's like, oh, this is interesting. There's some type of coded message there. There's an A you can see in the first line, then a G, an O, in the next line, and so on and so forth. So you see all these different letters. So he put them together, and he realized that was actually French, not Latin. So what he's decoded is in French, and it says, in English, it says, the treasure belongs to Dagobert II, king unto Zion, and he is there dead. And he was like, well, what's that? And he started looking all around the book to see if there's any explanation about that, and not a mention of it. So he's wondering why the author didn't point that out. And then he came to another parchment as well. There's two parchments. So that first parchment is pretty much saying, here I am, come and find me. There's something going on here. So yeah, you notice the oddly arranged letters first. And it seems to be an obvious effort to get your attention that something's going on here. Someone wants you to find something here, which he did. And then I just have stuff. Oh, can you put that parchment back up on the screen for a second? Okay. There's something that keeps coming up too. If you notice the bottom right-hand corner, that circled PS, that's not postscript. What he believes it is Priory of Zion. And the Priory of Zion is huge in the Da Vinci Code as well. But if you look at to the left of that, the last four lines, the last letters in each of those four lines going up. S-I-O-N. S-I-O-N, yeah. You see the scion again. So it's telling you there's something to be, you need to look at the scion too. What's going on with that? So he had to get in touch with the author and ask him, hey, what's going on with the secret codes in there? And the author was like, what are you talking about? What secret codes? And he was like, no, come on. These are obvious secret codes. And the author, I don't know if he was just being coy or if he didn't know, but seemed to backtrack and say, well, we wanted you to find them. You meaning someone that's willing to look. And but then that left him Henry Lincoln wondering, like, well, who's the we? And it turns out the we is the Priory of Zion. So that's the first parchment. And this parchment, I'm sorry, this wasn't found in the dossier. This parchment was actually found, or believed to be found, in a column in the church. As they were restoring the church, one of the villagers that were working on the church was coming down a flight of stairs and could see in the top of a column now, because they had pulled it off the ceiling, some type of tube, like a glass tube or vial. And inside that vial was a parchment, or two parchments rolled up. He immediately grabbed it and brought it to the priest and said, "Hey, look what I just found." And that's where things start speeding up, and you start seeing signs of money. Saunier went to a church next door, or in the town next door, and from there was sent by that bishop to Paris to talk to the higher ups. And while he was there, we don't know what exactly happened. We do know that he bought 3 paintings from the Louvre, and did have the parchments. He had them reviewed and verified. So that was they seem to be legit. However, all this, the trip to Paris and the Louvre paintings, seems to be speculation. I don't know if it's on this author's part, but since this book has come out, people have delved in this a little more, and there's no records of these sales happening in 1891. Not until 10 years after the fact, in 1901, do you see the first painting being sold from duplicates or copies of the paintings being sold from the Louvre. But who knows? What were these paintings? These paintings were, well, this one, Poussin. And yes, there you go. And inside that, so there's this tie-in with Poussin, and we don't understand why until we get to the library in France, the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. Henry Lincoln goes there and he starts looking for more information. Actually, he was sent there by the Priory of Sion, by one of the representatives of the Priory of Sion, the author of the previous book. And they said, no, there's something there that you'll be able to find out more about what's going on. And he discovered this portfolio, I think more than a book, called The Secret Dossier, which was never verified by the library of being, legit or not. But inside that, it's filled with photocopies, typescripts, again, not authenticated by the library. And it's written in pseudonyms too. So it's like, what is this? And it looks like to be pretty old, this collection of information. It's got genealogies in it as well, quasi-Masonic charters, sketches of aristocrat graves, because not only did Saunier start restoring the church, but once that first parchment was discovered, he started digging around the church. And in the church, he dug up the transepts, the aisles. We don't know if anything else was found, but we do know that he did find jewelry, in fact, like Visigoth jewelry from the 13th century, I believe. He found 3 things, but one of them was jewelry. But when nothing else turned up in the church, he started digging at night in the church cemetery. In particular, these 2 graves. But the one main grave was of it's one aristocrat woman from the late 1700s. And her tombstone is also, it's not really a tombstone. That's what it looked like. So this right here is laying in front of the tombstone flat. That's how they are in France in certain old cemeteries. And this over here is the tombstone. Now, does that look like a tombstone you've ever seen?
I think you sent me one.
Oh, yeah, I sent you images. There you go. So he starts using that as the key to understand what's on the parchments, and rightly so, because there's something going on there. However, this tombstone is no longer there. We don't know if it was ever there or if this is just part of the legend. This was found inside the secret dossier in the library, where he was sent where Henry Lincoln was sent to find this portfolio. But supposedly that is from a book that came out in the early 1900s. No, absolutely. I'm sorry. Late 1800s. And the story goes that once Saunier found that and deciphered what's on there, he destroyed them, but not before these were already recorded in a book. So that's how we still have what the information is on them to this day. Was supposedly they were recorded in this old book. And so once again, folks, you have more code going on there. that is used to find whatever he found. And now they pull in the Knights Templar because the Scion, they're taking that, they're looking at Scion as pointing to Jerusalem, or the temple in Jerusalem. So now you get the Templars. In fact, this is like pretty much one of the first books. Well, Holy Blood, Holy Grail is one of the first books, earlier books, or the author himself is to start bringing the Templars together, the Moravians, everything that is now like on the paranormal circuit today. Henry Lincoln is pretty much the guy who made it popular, created a whole craze around books like this, a whole niche for books like this. And so enter the Templars. And so at the end of the day, what he speculates the treasure to be was the Templar treasure, or the treasure from Jerusalem. And all these codes lead back to that. But I mean, it's such a mystery. The book in itself, it's a fun read, whether it's true or not. Since then, I've read some newer stuff saying that it was actually surrealist artists that came up with the whole thing. Like the Prior Zion, they try to show their pedigree in these genealogies in the secret dossier as going back to the times of the Templars and beyond. In fact, they started the Templars. But every society in France must be registered, and they see that this society, this particular one, Prior Zion, was registered in 1956. So it doesn't go back as far as they want it to. At least it wasn't registered until the mid 50s. And then it seems like, so this was registered, and then the secret dossier was made. These fake parchments were made, all to explain this story about what happened, or how this priest made so much money 100 years or 50 years before. So it's amazing how they tied all this together and left little breadcrumbs here and there as some form of art. And then for Henry Lincoln, a BBC writer, to pick up on it is just the masterstroke of creating this whole mythology. And that's pretty much what it is. A lot of these little things left here and there were to create credibility around this whole idea. Even the inclusion of Poussin, his art, because he's in the genealogy as well as one of the former heads of, or grand masters of, the Prior Zion, as is Da Vinci, and everyone in history seems to be somehow involved in that. So right there is kind of telltale. Like, I don't know, but it's amazing. Any questions, concerns, suggestions?
No, now I'm remembering that I looked into it. I read, some of that stuff, the Dan Brown stuff. I think Jim Mars wrote some about this, but I found, and I felt it was very convincing. What you said was that it looked like it was actually hoaxers or artists or somebody that put all this together for fun afterwards, which really fit. So I remember
it's amazing. It's amazing. And like, if someone did this, that in itself is just amazing. I mean, like, they put so much time, energy, and effort into it. And if that is the case, I mean, then there still is the mystery. Well, where did all this money come from? I mean, there still is the mystery of this church. That's like, there's something going on there, because we haven't even gotten to the inside of the church. The cathedral he built, Saunier, as soon as you get to the door, it says, this place, in Latin, it says, this place is terrible. That's what it says above the church. Like, you would never, expect to see that on a church. Terribles est locus iste. This place is terrible. When you walk in the door, to your left is the vat of holy water, but it's being held up by the devil. It's got this little miniature devil holding up the bowl. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. Oh my goodness. It's absolutely amazing. And I was supposed to visit this place in April, and it would have been like a lifelong dream. There we go. So there's the devil holding up the bowl of holy water. But if you're into allegory, the entire church, it tells a story, as you would. I mean, it's like that gaudy style from the late 1900s. And those are obviously the Stations of the Cross. But even them are they're very bizarre in what's going on, what they're portraying. You can really dig into these images. I mean, and as we've covered in the past, churches are meant and built to be read. So what is the story that's being told here? And so that's why it's easy to get lost in this whole treasure hunt and whatnot too. Like it's super easy to confuse. Again, the human mind, we want to resolve something, so we always jump to the easiest, answer here. It's either aliens or the Templars, and here again is the tomb. And what's interesting about this picture and why what makes it so easy to believe is in the same, about a mile away from Rennes-le-Château is a tomb just like that. It's since been blown up by the landowner because he didn't want people showing up anymore. But for years, art historians thought that he blew it up with dynamite because there was too many crazy people showing up to take pictures of it and everything else. And there's a lot of damage has been done at Rennes-le-Château in the last, 50 years because of treasure hunters. And so that's what you get when you don't know how to respect other people's property. But for a time before, art historians always imagined this to be a fictitious place. But it turns out after Henry Lincoln discovered the tomb, it's not that far away. The landscape in the background, you can actually match it up perfectly to where this actual tomb was. And even the stone that shepherd is stepping on, this is called Shepherds of Arcadia, by the way. Even the stone that he's stepping on was actually on the real tomb. So this ties into it too. Supposedly, Henry Lincoln goes on to say that there is there's golden ratio happening in here inside this picture. The staffs of both shepherds go down to form a point, and you can, overlay a pentagram on top of this. And he takes that and applies it to the entire landscape. In fact, the reason why this book is called The Holy Place is saying the entire land around this, which was once owned by the Cathars, where it was just an absolute holy place and was tied together. And the reason why Rennes-le-Château was built where it was had some type of holy or mystical significance. And it could also be the hiding place, because the Templars did have castles in that area as well, hiding place for Templar treasure, which I'm trying to think. The treasure would have been originally taken by the Romans when they sacked Jerusalem, and then Rome was sacked. Eventually, it makes its way back to southern France, or makes its way to southern France via the Templars. Let's see, what else do we have in here? But I was just, super excited because I was going to do the Camino de Santiago. And to me, like a true, since the Camino is considered your Camino or your pilgrimage, I thought, what better way to customize it than begin my pilgrimage at Rennes-le-Château, which is something I've been dying to see this place for the last 30 years, since I picked up this book. And I never thought I was actually going to be there. And it turns out I wasn't. But I thought, what a great place to really begin digging into the Camino. Because, the Templars, they do have a part of the Camino de Santiago, but they were pretty much formed to protect pilgrims on the way to Jerusalem, the first pilgrimage. But eventually, when they get kicked out of Jerusalem, when the Moors take it over, they're kind of like soldiers without a job anymore. Of course, they're filthy rich because they pretty much created the world's first banking system. And I'm sure your audience already knows this, but for those who don't, if someone just stumbled in here, what the Templars were doing is, aside from protecting pilgrims on their pilgrimage to Jerusalem, they also created a banking system, a credit system, where you could deposit your money in France or in England at a Templar, I won't say bank, but that's essentially what it was. And they would give you a note of a promise note. So when you got to Jerusalem or some other bank, a Templar bank along the way, you could turn it in get your cash back. It was just a safer way to travel. They created the system. They also made a lot of money off the system. So when Jerusalem was no more in their ownership or under their guard, they were chased out. They were now back in France and Europe, filthy rich and an active military. I mean, these were warrior monks. So it was worrisome to the king, them being so close, the King of France, that is, and to the Pope as well. So they really didn't have a job to do. I don't know where. There was a reason why I went down this path. Why am I talking about the Templars? Fact is, okay, this is what I'm talking about. So they lose their job pretty much in Jerusalem. I feel like they took their services to the Camino de Santiago now and protected pilgrims on the trail from France to Spain, to Santiago, Spain, because there are Templar castles and buildings along that route as well, but they're not as popular as the bigger ones. But they were there, so I feel like they were still operating in northern Spain and southern France, but on a different pilgrim trail. That was just a little side note I thought I would add. So I thought starting off my particular Camino at Rennes-le-Château would be much more in that vein of a paranormal Camino.
So,
what do you think?
Interesting. I think all this stuff is interesting. I love the history of the Templars and everything, but I just got a blue alert, and I don't know what that means. Should I be freaking out?
I don't know. My phone just did something too. I could hear it in my ear.
Do you have a blue alert?
I don't have a blue alert. What's a blue alert? Is that like a fire thing?
It says the purpose of a blue alert is to establish a quick response system designed to issuing coordinating alerts following a violent attack upon a law enforcement officer. Uh-oh. That's not good.
I don't get it. So shouldn't they be, I mean, why would they tell anyone else that that a policeman's being attacked? Wouldn't they just tell the police?
I guess they would.
What are we going to do about it? Like,
I don't know. I know Marianne was in the watching. So Marianne, if you're watching, let us know if we need to freak out because of this blue alert. Gas mask is saying the blue avians have arrived. Uh-oh.
During our show? Come on.
Alien. No, that'd be good if it was during our show, especially if they came in here and said, yo.
So, then we'd have to be like, guys, this is not an alien show. This is not about UFOs. You're going to have to wait till the next show.
Well, see, and Rock of Ages just said Alejandro's Batman, and I guess I kind of did reveal myself. I get these blue alerts, so I'm notified, so I can go.
Yeah.
And I usually what I'll do is I'll crawl onto the roof and I'll hop rooftop to rooftop and go help. But at this point, I'm saying I don't think they didn't give me enough info. So Commissioner Gordon, I need a little more info if you want some help. But
does that make me Robin in some way?
It says public safety alert, blue alert warning in this area until 11:38 p.m. Monitor radio or TV.
Maybe it means there was a cop kidnapped because I mean it's like an Amber Alert, but it's a blue alert.
I don't know, dude.
That's
I don't
bizarre.
know if I should be freaking out or what. Maybe it's because of what you were reading, and like they're like, uh-oh, Well,
I did. I am putting the pieces together. I think that kind of moving the Templars around. I'm moving them from Jerusalem to Santiago, Spain. And there's an alien tie-in. I'm sure there is.
They don't want out.
Right. So I should probably stop talking about it, is what you're saying?
No.
The only way I want to be safe is if I talk about it, right? Because then, like, if something weird happens, you can go, see? Doug was right.
Oh, that's funny. So I decided to check Twitter. And Heather Moore, I think she's AZ3TV. So the 3TV, they're the same ones who came to our house a couple weeks ago or like last week and filmed us for the Congress. Yeah. But anyways, Heather from 3TV, one of the anchor ladies there, she said, working to confirm this with DPS. What's happening? Just got blue alert. Oh, some officers were fired upon this morning. Oh. Allegedly. I'm reading these tweets right now.
Breaking news, folks. Breaking news.
What the literal F does this mean? Someone said. So we don't know, actually, for sure. People are commenting. Huh, that's interesting, huh? Even the news is like, dude, what's up with this? What's this
pretty
about?
Bad. They're probably just testing out the new system. I've never heard of a blue alert before.
Oh, look, they already have a story up. There's an image of somebody. Oh, teenager arrested, allegedly shooting at troopers in Phoenix. So that's what this is about.
Oh, then I should have gotten one. I thought you were in California first.
Yeah, because I'm in Arizona right now. So they got the guy. That's kind of interesting. A blue alert. So it had nothing to do with what you were saying, though.
Damn it.
So it was Arizona area. So didn't mean to freak you guys out. Marianne was no help. She has not commented in here. She's probably not watching anymore. But yeah, blue alert. So anyway, sorry to interrupt your talk, but yeah, interesting. I think what's interesting are these artists who do this sort of thing, and it's frustrating in that it creates these mythologies. You're fascinated by it, and in a way, I'm fascinated by it too. But it is kind of weird because this is not the only time this has happened. This has happened before. There were artists who put up a statue about this alien encounter in, like, I think it was a park or something, but they had permission, but it was fake. It wasn't a real encounter at all. It was just kind of an art installation to see how people would react. And essentially people, new stories got written and nobody knew. And then finally it came out later that this was all fake and it was by an artist. And so the news people got a little embarrassed. But of course, the better news people did more research before they posted it to try to find out what the roots of it were. But yeah, this does happen once in a while. And it
happened. I mean, throughout history, I mean, the Bible had books that are, other books written for credibility purposes and put away to be discovered 50 years from. I mean, like, this goes throughout. I mean, what's the name of that book? God, which digs into all these different fake books throughout history that were written, which we often don't even think about or consider, written just to give credibility to another book or another. So, I mean, like, this is just a very human thing to see in the past decade to happen. I mean, or the past century to happen. So close. I mean, it's amazing that they formed this society in the mid 50s, and by the late or early 70s, suddenly this pops up, or the topic of this does. And how you can convince yourself that this is real, I mean, it amazes me.
Well, but the Hollow Earth stuff, which you love, mostly stems from fiction, especially, and that's what's kind of interesting.
Oh, the Hollow Earth.
Yeah. How people will create these pieces of fiction, people will believe it and create these cults around them, and then it'll just grow and grow like that. Essentially, I guess that's how religions start. But
doesn't take much.
And a lot of times people just won't, because they don't want to. And I think that's interesting when it comes to all of this stuff. They won't investigate further to get to the root, because I don't think they really want to. They don't know.
It's not that they can't handle the truth. They just don't want the truth to bust their bubble.
Exactly.
But it's highly, highly entertaining. Even Agartha, the Templars are tied into that too. Supposedly that's where the Templars went in another legend. And that's the thing, is when legend becomes, it's like the Grail legend. The Grail legend is it's a legend. It's a story. It's a historical novel. In fact, it might be the world's first novel that was written. It's not a real relic or object. It's not in the Bible. It was never talked about before it was written, but we've turned it into this real thing, this real quest for some people. There are people out there that really believe in the Holy Grail.
It's kind of interesting because
literary device
can't handle the truth. It's more of an issue that people can handle the truth. It's just, that's the whole point. The truth is too boring. So it's fun to have this imagined truth that you allegedly can't handle, because that's way more exciting. There's the truth out there that's so shocking, so amazing that I can't even handle it. And there are some, probably genuine, really cool mysteries out there, but still.
And those are the ones I want to know. And so that's why I personally get into these things and go down a lot of these rabbit holes. I want to find the real ones instead of these distractions. But this one is definitely interesting because it's so well done. You gotta respect it. I mean, it's like, it really is well done. And if you dig even further, it turns out that the priest have made all of his money by charging for masses. He would take ads out in Parisian magazines and whatnot, and you would send, $1 or whatever a franc, for a mass done in your name or whatnot. Whether he was doing these all, there's no way he could have been doing them all, but he does keep record of these, and that goes against the Catholic Church. So he was, I also know, suspended at one time because he wouldn't tell one of the bishops how he was making his money. So he was suspended at one time. So what it looks like is he was just fraud. I mean, he was doing fraudulent things to make all his money. Granted, he was giving back to the village. So, there was a Robin Hood element, I guess, to it. But that could be where the money came from if that is what was going on. It seems to be that was what was going on. But, then you have things, Sonnier, the only person he really trusted and kept around him was his housekeeper. That seemed to be, what went on back in the days, the housekeeper, which is probably his girlfriend or whatever else. But can you hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit, but not much.
Okay, my headset did something. It's talking to me. And so she outlived him. He died in 1917, I believe, and she died in the early 50s, oddly enough. But she used to say to people, there's gold underneath your feet. She'd say cryptic stuff like that. Like, there's enough gold underneath your feet to feed the entire village for 100 years and then have X amount left over. So she would drop little things like that. And I don't know if they jointly together were creating this mythology on their own too, to explain away where the money was coming from. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, where does this myth begin?
Yeah.
Were they aware that they were creating this? I don't know.
Yeah, and then when stuff happened so long ago, when it's impossible to really know or figure out, that makes it more difficult. And it's even like this guy who was in here talking about David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins. It's the same kind of thing where the information those two people provided is anecdotal and or personal observations of what they believe are the motivations behind why certain people do certain things, which is speculative. We can look at society and we can speculate why people are doing what they're doing, but
it doesn't make it true.
Exactly.
It doesn't make it true.
And so this guy this is why I would, you want to debate something that people have speculated in a book. What good is that? I don't want to debate. I would rather debate some facts and something more substantial. And
plus you have to prepare for a debate anyways. No, you don't just debate. But if you really want to break it down too, like there's like a pantheon of conspiracies, and it's like the same framework that we use going back in time to create all these gods to explain different reasons for different things that we just didn't have the science to explain to us then. So we created other reasons why these things exist. It's the same thing with conspiracies. Look at conspiracies more like different gods in the pantheon too. We create different ones to explain away different things for us. And that is just hardwiredness. This is the framework we work with as humans, problem solvers. We need to resolve stuff. That's the way our brain is wired. So it almost seems like it's part of us, this belief in things that maybe isn't real, but we just need some type of resolve to be able to sleep at night. So we believe, we'll look as much as we need to in order to be convinced until something else comes along. But then that's the kicker, is once you're convinced of something, it's like locked in. You tar over it. It's really tough to convince you otherwise, even when you're shown evidence. It's just, this cognitive dissonance is there. So like we're really built interestingly. We're set up to fail almost when it comes to conspiracy versus truth.
Yeah, Dolene says fiction is fun. Rodrigo saying you would like to talk to someone named Walter Bosley, who writes a lot about this stuff. Bim Jim says he's a climate scientist. He says there's no life on Venus. Those astronomers are idiots for thinking so. I don't know why you think that. I would like to hear more about that. I think they're just saying it's a possibility, the origins of that phosphine. I
have friends at NASA that are very interested in this, in what's going on right now.
Yeah, we need to cut the F out or we'll go extinct. And I think that's a good point, is that, I think for instance, scientists love sci-fi, and in a way, maybe when it comes to cosplay and Comic-Con, maybe they're at least a little bit healthier of a way to express your escapism, in that these are people who are fans of fiction, but they know it's fiction. They know they're Jedis. They know there's no real Jedis, but they love pretending they're Jedis, having Jedi groups, and getting lost in that, on all of that. But at the same time, you know, because a lot of these guys are engineers and scientists, they know that's not reality, and there is something different with reality. Right. And what I like, and one of the things I learned from the UFO Congress, is that now that we have a lot of more mainstream people coming into being interested in some of these, you know, more weird topics, is that they bring really interesting perspectives. When you're more rigorous and careful in the way that you approach information, I think it can be even more revealing and interesting. And so, you know, some of the ideas that are brought forward are really fascinating. You know,
I think so too. I think they're born out of sci-fi. I think there's like an exchange, like does art imitate life or life imitate art? And I think, you know, there's plenty of times where science fiction becomes science 10 years after the fact or 50 years after the fact. So I mean, like there is an exchange, I think, by participating in these things. Oh, there can be. It's thinking outside of the box. You know, a non-scientist writing a work of science fiction is thinking outside the box because they have to. They're outside of that science box. But in being outside of that science box, they're looking at it from a totally different perspective that sometimes can yield some serious results.
Yeah, and that's what inspires a lot of them too, just to look outside of the box, which I think is really exciting. I mean, certainly a lot of the scientists I talk to who are in the closet about some of their, you know, being interests, you know, are driven by science fiction. And I always ask that of, you know, those scientists, and they're like, sure, you know, of course I love science fiction and I want some of these things to be real. And I think that's what some people don't realize too, is, you know, we get really frustrated with those people who are dashing our hopes and, you know, bursting our bubbles. But at the same time, what inspires a lot of them, what inspires me and probably you to look into all of this stuff, is that we're entertaining these possibilities and looking for the possibility that some of these things are true. And, but, you know, we're not just going to stop at believing. We're going to try to gather the information.
Right. Right. Especially if we're going to have anything to do with the telling of this tale. If we're going to, you know, join forces or hop on board, that's an investment in time, energy, and money. So it's like you need to do your research before you, you know, dive into these things. I want a lot of this stuff to be true. And if it was true, I would go after it. You know, that would be my holy grail on my grail journey. Unfortunately, thanks to the internet, you don't have to dig too deep nowadays. Back in the 70s and the 80s, this stuff could sell better, or would sell better, without being questioned much, except by the scientists or by the art historians. But those people in the Smithsonian are just trying to keep us down, you know. So I mean, like, they become the bad guys because they're not going along with our little story that we want to tell.
Yeah. And that's what's frustrating about these days, is that we do have a lot of answers at our fingertips, and you can go do lots of research and find a lot of answers. But unfortunately, unfortunately, people just don't. They would rather believe the fantasy many times.
Well, because Google rewards the most popular pages, and the most popular pages are more conspiracy or credibility pages, which are just shock pages, shock blogging, or you know, yellow journalism. That's what pops up first. They're taking that as a source, and it's not a source. So you're still going to check the sources. But even then, you have to verify the source after you get it off the internet to make sure that that's true. You know, so it's as easy as it is, it's even harder sometimes to verify a lot of these things. I don't know. I think I see there's a parallel between what was going on at the end of the 1800s to what's going on in blogging today too, when you compare it to yellow journalism. And again, I think we've talked about this in the past, the giant thing. Whenever people resort to what was in the paper in 1888, giants being found here, giants being found there, and they're talking about it like it's a credible source. People wanted to sell newspapers back in the day. That's how they made their money. So you would have incredible stories. That's not credible. It's incredible.
It's like the sideshows, which we've kind of lost that history.
Clickbait. It's clickbait.
Yeah. I mean, there used to be sideshows all over, traveling the world, trying to make you think,
Carnivals.
Fish Man or Monkey Man or Monkey Boy or whatever.
Yeah.
And we don't have that much anymore, but it's all online, I guess.
It is.
And it's kind of the theme. It's starting to be the theme of what we've been talking about. But what's interesting, I think, is that although a lot of the mythology and the occultism has a lot of roots, I think, in this fantastical and these people, these charlatans who are driven by money, who recognize they can take advantage of people's gullibility. And that happens today. Big time. The same thing is happening today. But what I think is interesting is, although you and I are kind of reviewing these things, exposing these things, kind of like we have been today, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't buying it. They're like, no, that debunking isn't true. That was all real. The protocols of the, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But some of the occult that we do touch upon that is paranormal related, at least still does have some outstanding mystery to it. And
Yes.
I'm not so sure there's any outstanding mystery as far as conspiracy with this stuff. The outstanding mystery, which I think is interesting, is how, for artistic purposes throughout history, people have purposefully created these mythologies and this artwork and these alternate realities.
Right. It's another universe. They're charging it, so to speak. So it does have some relevance. All this belief in something does create something. I mean, like a thought form of some sort or another. So there is something magical, if you will, about what's going on, but it's not what they're saying it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's funny because everyone can be a cult leader now. In one of our panels on the UFO Congress, it was with other UFO researchers, and we were criticizing entertainment, and especially those people in this field who get a large following, and then their egos get really big, and then they're mostly trying to please their audience rather than do real research. And that happens. And I asked, if any of them have been tempted by that at all. But it's so easy in that someone says everyone can be a cult leader now. I mean, you could probably build some beard cult around your product. You've got a lot.
I have. I mean, I'm Douglas Smythe. I mean, it really, because everyone nowadays is an expert. We live in the time of experts where you just need to have a YouTube channel and suddenly you're an expert without any credentials. You're an expert. So yeah, definitely that self-publishing has become way too easy nowadays. So there's no doors, no locked doors anymore to get yourself out there and to get whatever crazy thing you believe in out there. So it's a lot like when someone's on stage for some reason or another, psychologically, we revere them. They have something about power over us. Same thing with a book. When someone has a book, even if it's self-published or not, they have a book. They took the time, focused to get that much on paper, and that adds again something. We look at them with some type of reverence, and it's psychologically, it affects us. So I mean, there is this weird credibility thing that we. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I get it.
And it's easier than ever now to create this.
Because people are always telling me, write a book. And I have some in the works, but the only reason is to bring credibility. Whereas typically I'm like, if I'm writing a book, then it's going to keep me from writing articles online. And I've got hundreds, if not thousands of articles online, enough to make tons of books. So it's kind of like that same thing you're talking about, the reverence that goes along with that kind of thing.
We have any questions?
Yeah, I'm looking at questions. I do white science and paranormal stuff too. Emotions are more powerful than facts. The person earlier who was talking about Bigfoot and everything, and those guys says, Mark Twain once wrote, it's easier to convince people of a lie than convince people they've been lied to. But all of these things kind of get in the way. Bim Jim, of course, who's a scientist. Talking
Is he a scientist, or does he just do science?
To be, I don't know. Gas Mask says, I'm a lone wolf, so I can believe what I want. And I think that's a great thing, Gas Mask, personally, in that I feel similar. But a lot of people don't want to feel like that. They don't want to be a lone wolf. They don't want to be left out in the cold. They want to be part of a group and part of a community and
a tribe. And that's the way we were wired, I think. So I mean, like, whether you don't want to or want, it's in you already, and you can think that's what you individually want, but that's what you collectively want as a human being. Like, we all want to find our tribe, and so.
But I kind of like,
so the internet makes it easier.
I kind of like, and what we're doing here, I think, is one of the major contributions to psychology, or to philosophy, I should say, that American brought is pragmatism, which we're kind of losing, but I think that we need to come back to, and it's something that I certainly am holding on to. I think you too. And that can be our patriotic way to save this legacy of American pragmatism.
That's what we're doing. One show at a time. We should just change the name to the Pragmatists.
Saving the country, Doug, and the planet by
oh yeah. Yeah. We're more about, personally, I'm more of a planet type of guy as opposed to a nationalist. I look at this global outlook in that regard. And, whenever I say that, I'm all about one world, not one nation. People start looking, start screaming out Illuminati and stuff like that. You want one world? It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, these invisible borders, I have a problem with that. We're all humans living on Earth. We're all residents of Earth. If anything came to attack us, we'd all hopefully work together, though I doubt it, to save the planet from the scourge or whatever it is. So I have a little more grandiose view when it comes to who am I, what I support. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but there are, at least for me, I get that too. I think there are a lot of fundamental,
cultural
contributions that America has provided that if we get back to, that would be helpful for the world as a whole. But same is true.
Are you saying you want to make America great again? Is that what you're saying?
One day.
There's an ideal. There's an American ideal, but it's just an ideal at the end of the day. And we can all try to live up to that ideal. But I mean, really, that's how I feel about it. I don't know if we've ever achieved that, but as long as we're always trying to achieve that, and nothing distracts us from that, even though it's bound to happen. But I mean, it's a noble ideal that should always be developing and be progressing and changing. And, it's not set in stone. That's the problem. I have a lot of people is they act like, it's not in the Constitution. The Constitution says this. Everything. It's meant to change. It was meant to change. That's in the Constitution. If you want to talk about stuff that's in the Constitution, you got to change it up. You can't stick to, that's like, I don't know, using the instruction manual from a Model T Ford for your car today. Like, it changes with the model, and our model's changed. And so the text needs to change with it. And I don't know. It's really basic. I mean, but people have trouble wrapping their mind around it.
Gotcha.
And that's where we are, folks, on today's episode of What is Doug Reading? Grumpy old men.
Really interesting stuff, though. I think people loved it. A lot of people got involved in the conversation. Dolene says growth. We're all learning together, right, guys?
We are.
So
and the more you know, the more you read, the more you know. But folks, I can't stress enough, despite what may be true or may not be true, this is a most excellent read. And if you do want to, a great vacation read, something to read on the plane, something to read when you're on the beach, whatever. It's nonfiction fiction or reads like that. Again, he was a writer. Actually, I think he's the last living writer of Doctor Who that's still, to be redundant, that's still alive right now from the 60s, from the early show. So it's well written. And There may be speculation here, but it's supportive. I mean, there is evidence. There is real evidence of things that happened that support the nonfiction too, and that's what makes for great nonfiction, or great fiction rather. So it's highly entertaining. It's an amazing story. I love everything about it. I've been chasing this since the mid '90s, and every year I seem to discover more and more about it. And I still plan on visiting Rennes-le-Château because the whole layout is amazing. If you're into allegory or deciphering what a church is saying, or a town in its architectural expression, then Rennes-le-Château is still a mystery to be solved, loaded with history, packed with mystery. So pick it up, folks. And I do recommend The Holy Blood, Holy Grail too. That is the book that began all of this. It created the whole niche when it comes to Templars and the paranormal in that way. We on this show, we look at a lot of firsts, I think. And this is definitely one of them. This classic Henry Lincoln. He also has 3 documentaries from the 70s, possibly as late as the 80s too, that you can find on YouTube. But there's other ones since then. So Rennes-le-Château, right there. Google that, YouTube that to learn a little bit more about the history and the mystery. And thanks for tuning in to today's episode of What's Doug Reading. I'm Doug Smythe, and with me as always.
And it's kind of interesting. A lot of people talking about Dune. I think that's interesting in that it's another book that is a fiction, pure fiction. But there's so much maybe allegory or philosophy embedded in it that you still get something from it in the real world and the way it even feels real.
No, it does. I mean, it's all about the spice.
And then someone else had talked to you, they said a while back, and said you should look into star forts.
Oh, that's right. I have my notes.
Note.
Yeah, no, I have notes. I have that down somewhere. I did see that.
But I'm a big fan of Dune, especially the philosophies of...
I'll look into that for next time.
Yeah, fear and stuff like that.
Beer and stuff like that?
Fear, like getting past fears and things like that. Kind of self-help type of ideas in Dune that I thought were great. It's really good.
That's interesting.
Stuff.
Yeah, I never looked at this self-help, but I see
Fort's BS. I don't think Dirk's into the Star Fort thing. But I guess thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for Dolene and Rodrigo and Bim Jim and Gas Mess and Rodrigo and Argo and Jock and all of you for being really active, Sonia, and sharing your opinions and stuff. It's fun to have you all here. And I love it that even if you guys, do disagree with us, it's fun that you stick in here and share your opinions, because we certainly respect your opinions, even if they're different than ours. And we really enjoy your contributions. Yes. To the chat. So thank you all so much.
Yes.
But that's another episode, huh?
The lifeblood of the show is what you guys add to it, be it on point or non sequitur. It's something that we can run with and latch onto, because this show really, I mean, it's not necessarily about a book per episode. It's just us getting together and doing what we do, which is this. And we appreciate your contributions.
We do. Thanks, dudes. All right, that's it.
Take care, guys.
So until next time, adios, muchachos.
Ciao,